One, in relation to the body assumption, I saw your video about Maria Valtorta.
Oh yes.
Where she describes what happened, about Mary laying in the bed and John was there, etc.
Yes.
And so is that only a vision from her, or does anyone else teach or that the events that way she described it?
Okay. There may be other seers who have got the same vision, because there are many Catholics who had visions. The reason I focus on that one is because you can actually examine the documents themselves that I read from, and you can see, like for example, on Good Friday, I uploaded a long video about the crucifixion, showing that by simply examining information in Maria Valtorta's visions, because of the sheer detail, you can establish the date of Jesus' death as probably being AD 34. Now, the key point here is that if somebody is making things up, you get nowhere. There'd be no data that would have any coherence at all. But I also have done the same thing with the date of Jesus' birth. You examine the data within her writings, and she's not even explicitly trying to establish this. Other people have come along and done it. That's why I focus on her and give my time to that, because I wouldn't give my time to any other visionary, because you don't know whether they're describing accurately what happened or not. But if this woman is describing, for example, we do have her describing a year before Jesus' death, the starry sky in a place called Gadara, an actual place in Israel, and she describes it in a way. Now, if she's just telling a story, she's just going to be talking about this star, that star, the other star. But by using a star program, going back, one finds that in AD 33, at the very time she's describing it, that exact appearance of the sky was as she described it. The planets were as she describes them, the stars were as she describes them. Well, that's impossible to do. She was writing in the 1940s. There were no programs to do this, and you need extremely complicated mathematical work to be done to get back to that date, and then to create an image. It's impossible. So this lends authenticity to what she would say she was seeing. Or it could be the devil.
Yeah, but when you look at that, I noticed the videos, anything related to Mary, she seems to prefer John. So do you think it's a bit odd that she seemed, and I know it said at the end of John that Jesus said that Mary should go and stay with John, but then you'd think that if Mary has such an important position, it would involve some of the other apostles in Jerusalem as well. But when I look at the video that you did, it's empty of the other apostles. It's only John and Mary. Okay,
if you were to, I think I've done videos on Gamaliel, who's mentioned in the Acts, and who's obviously historically a very famous rabbi, and it talks about his conversion. Now, he came years, I don't know how long it was later actually now, but he comes to Mary because he's distraught that he didn't believe Jesus during his lifetime, and it's shortly before his death. So it's sometime after he speaks in the Sanhedrin in the Acts of the Apostles. And that she's still present in Jerusalem. She's a focal point for the early church in Jerusalem. But we don't get much by way of visions of her compared to the rest of Maria Valtorta's visions, for the simple reason there's 5 fat volumes. It's bigger than War and Peace. In fact, 3 times the size of Tolstoy's War and Peace, I calculate, by my copy of War and Peace. The whole thing is devoted to the gospel, Jesus' public ministry, as told in our Gospels. There's only a small part that's before that, prior to the birth of Jesus, and a small part after that. So that's just the way it was. And Jesus said, actually, because Maria Valtorta was treated badly by the church leaders, he would not give all the revelation he wanted to give. This will be it. I know, God process it, right? he could have given more. We might have got more about the early church, more about the subsequent centuries, more about our future, our destiny. But he said no more, because she's been treated badly. She was treated badly. They treated her with disdain, caused her more grief than necessary. The Servites, an order of Catholic priests, were entrusted by Jesus to look after her, because you need protection from the Catholic Church leaders. You know, they're not pussycats. They can be mean. Padre Pio, a saint in our church, was persecuted by these people for a while, but she was to be protected by the Servites. They failed to protect her. So you see, Jesus was just angry, and he said, "That's it, no more."
So I find it interesting that you say that, because when you look at someone like Ahab, even though he was being bad to the prophets, God still sent in one short period of time he sent 3 different prophets to them. So I just thought that if the visions that Maria had were that important, it seemed like God could have a backup.
Oh, God does. The Virgin Mary, her vision ended in the early 50s. The Blessed Virgin Mary appeared to hundreds of thousands of Italians in northern Italy in the 1950s. And I'm saying to somebody else's, I forgot the place. Then, prior to this, we have the massive appearance to 70 to 100,000 people in Fatima, Portugal, 1917. Then we have appearances in the 1960s, I believe, at a place in northern Spain called Garabandal, 1961 to 1964. Then we have appearances of the Blessed Virgin in Medjugorje in Croatia in the early 80s. Now, it's pretty much, without doubt, she did appear in the early 80s. There's questions as to whether that's continued since then. Then there's the speaking of Jesus or Mary to persons as individuals, giving them messages. That still goes on. So God has a massive backup plan, but this was a special gift. God did not need to give us the entire gospel. You know, this is like, if you take the gospel according to John, we'll put all of them together, Matthew, Mark, Luke and John. They're small, right? Tiny. This book is the entire gospel expanded in all its detail. Jesus didn't have to give that. He gave it once before to Mary of Agreda. No, go back. A woman in the early 1800s, Anne Catherine Emmerich, she was given a huge amount of visions as well. And prior to that, a nun called Maria Valtorta in the 17th century. But we're in the end times now. There's no time to give this again, I believe. What we're having is now warnings. So that's how I see it. So he's got his backup plan. He's following it. He's carrying on through his church.